We're going to cover a wide variety of stuff today. The BRC is going to be our foundation. We're not going to sit here and read the BRC to y'all. The idea is we're going to take some of the concepts and the foundations in there and use them as a basis to explore a lot of what's going on. And what's going on is changing so much. We were iterating over email every day the last 3 to 4 days on, well, hey, now we need to cover this. Oh, well, wait, this changed. Okay, now this is going to take its place. And, you know, I think that's just what we're going to expect in the coming weeks, months, and years. That pace, that change in the slope of the evolution is not going to change. So I want to start, this is not a trick question, but I really want to know because it's going to help us gauge what we cover today. How many of y'all have read or are relatively familiar with the BRC on technology governance? Show of hands. Okay, great. We're going to incorporate that into what we cover and how deep, how broad we go today. So I'm going to start with, there was a quote in the BRC that's being used a lot, and it's being used a lot because it does capture where we are right now, and it captures the paradox that we as board directors need to be taking into account in our oversight. And that quote is, the biggest risk right now is not taking one. And you can see the paradox that's inherent in that. And that's going to actually frame a lot of what we chat about today. We want to cover some tactical takeaways you can leave with. We want to get a little bit, you know, philosophical and deep on a couple of things, maybe hopefully make you think a little bit, maybe think about how some of what we're going to cover is going to apply to the companies that you serve. And I want to touch on the fact that we are absolutely, before too many minutes go by, we are going to talk about that mic drop that happened not very long ago called DeepSeek. So, you know, don't worry, going to be talking quite a bit about that in a couple of minutes, as a matter of fact. So to just lay a couple of foundations, using the BRC as our guide, I already mentioned that one of the main focus areas of the BRC was how much the pace of technology evolution has changed. Technology evolution has been a theme for decades, but that slope and that exponential curve has really changed and is continuing to change. So, you know, Ryan, as one of the commissioners for the BRC this past year, I'd like for you to level set us a little bit and talk about how do the directors in the audience need to think about looking where that puck is going and how they need to act or react in response to that puck's trajectory.
Sure. So delighted to be with you all today. Thanks very much to the chapter for the invitation. To address Joanna's questions, a couple of things to just frame this up. One of the other quotes that I'll start with, which I think is right early in the BRC, is a question that we asked ourselves. Why this, why now? Right? Because the data has actually been very consistent for the last at least 15 years that organizations across industries that lead with technology, that transform their business models with technology, win, and they win in a very significant way. So that in and of itself really isn't new. The acceleration, the speed, this AI wave, I think is what's put a lot of organizations and finally leaders sort of over the hump of saying we need to figure this out. And so I think the BRC was very timely. Everybody's, of course, consumed with all things AI and justifiably so because we know what these patterns look like. You win in a pretty significant way if you get this right, and you fall behind very, very quickly and arguably faster and faster if you sort of ignore what's happening with these developments. And we can come into some of those data points in a little bit. In terms of the BRC, I'd recommend that you read through it. There's great tools for boards, including charters for science and technology committees. We can talk about that in a bit. But the main sort of idea that I would encourage you to take away is that this needs to be a regular conversation with your boards. Whether you create a new structure on your boards or not, whether it's in the full board, but there's been a tendency for the last period of time for board directors to say, we don't have time for this, we're too busy with all of the other sorts of things. And arguably that is just it's our responsibility as board directors to find the time. I mean, we are the board, we own the schedules, we can carve out the kinds of time that we need. And what we do with that time is very important. What are we doing today with the organization? Obviously, what are all of the emerging risks? But who is responsible in the organization for looking at what's next and translating that? What have we learned over the last quarter? Those kinds of things. So it's really a forward-looking as opposed to a backward-looking review. It's much more active, much more dynamic, and it's just in response to the really incredible acceleration that we're all seeing. And I'll make one final point on this. As directors, we are learning about this at the exact same time that the management teams are. Right? There's nobody who's an expert in what's happening in 6 months from now. Right? And so it gives another sort of opportunity for boards to make sure that we're having the right conversation, because we can't necessarily trust that the people who are up to their eyeballs operating organizations are necessarily able to follow everything as quickly as it's happening. Hopefully they are, but it's, again, I think another opportunity for governance.
Absolutely, yeah.